Hello everybody, my name is Manni Singh. I'm the cropping systems agronomist here at Michigan State University. The program that we are running here focus on identifying agronomic management practices that we can use to maximize productivity and profitability of various row crops that we grow in Michigan, focusing mainly on corn, soybean and small grains. Today we are out here looking at some of the work that we are doing in soybean production, specifically focusing on how we can change management practices based on when we are able to plant our soybean crops. We have been dealing with these variable climate situations that's leading to variability in our planting window. So we are essentially looking at, based on when we are able to plant, do we need to change our management? And some of those management decisions are easy to change and can be planned ahead of time. Others might not be that easy. So we're looking at all those gamuts of management decisions, starting with variety selection, row spacing, seeding rates, use of seed treatments, in-season fertility, all those practices to see how we can optimize those based on when we are able to plant. This is our third year of this research, and I have my graduate student Tom Siler, who's leading this work here, and he will talk more about what we are seeing here in the field.
Hi everybody, my name is Tom Siler. I'm a second year graduate student in Dr. Manni Singh's lab, and as he mentioned, we're looking at optimizing agronomic decisions based on planting date. Ideally, soybean planting would occur as early in the season as possible. However, conditions such as unfavorable weather, poor soil conditions, equipment availability, and farm size often result in delayed planting situations. So therefore, in Michigan, we're experiencing planting dates as early as April and as late as early July even. So one of the benefits to early planting is the earlier canopy closure. So as we can see here, these soybean plants were planted on May 13th. And we can see that they have already achieved full canopy closure. We can see that they are suppressing weeds very well, shading the weeds so they're not receiving light. And we're also in reproductive growth already. We are already seeing pods on these plants. And we can compare the early planted soybeans over to soybeans that are planted later. So these soybeans were planted on June 12th, and we can see the vast difference between this canopy and the previous plot's canopy. These plants are not shading weeds, they're not maximizing light interception, and they're still in vegetative growth. There's no reproductive growth occurring here. Another factor that's affecting your canopy closure will be your row spacing. So we can come back to this early planted. These were planted on 15-inch row spacings, and we have that full canopy closure. And we can come here and compare that to what's on 30-inch row spacing. So these were planted on the same day, but we can see that maximum light interception is not being achieved. There's still areas between the rows that have gaps. So we're seeing a little bit of weed pressure there, and we're not maximizing moisture in this plot. So these plants were planted in early June, and we can see that there is a pretty good canopy closure. However, they are behind in reproductive growth. We can see that these are at early bloom, maybe late bloom, but they're still far behind the early planted soybeans, and full canopy closure is not achieved yet. We can also see that achieving an optimal plant stand is critical to maximizing canopy closure. These soybeans were planted early in the season at a low seeding rate. Shortly after planting, we had a heavy rainfall and a crust formed on the soil surface. This resulted in a low plant stand with many gaps where soybeans did not emerge, which led to a non-uniform canopy. And within there, we can see weed issues, especially mare's tail, where they're not being shaded by the soybean canopy. We can see difference in the canopy closure between these early planted soybeans and the soybeans that are planted later. We can see the difference in canopy closure between the early planted soybeans and these soybeans that were planted later in early June. These did not have reduced emergence due to soil crusting, and the canopy here is much more uniform and achieving greater light interception and weed shading. The overall goal of this study is to optimize canopy closure by identifying the ideal row spacing and seeding rate during early season soybean planting, and determine if those recommendations should be adjusted as planting is delayed. During the soybean field day, we'll also be discussing the results from previous year's research, which include other management decisions that can be adjusted based on planting date, such as optimal maturity group selection, seeding rate, and seed treatment.